In the recent meta, every single Ogre player has been spamming their Crusher units with great weapons. Personally, I think that is absolutely overrated, and instead we have some quite effective alternative here. Man-Eaters with great weapons. In this battle against Le Norm's Beastmen, we'll be showcasing these underrated anti-large armor-piercing elites of the Ogre Kingdoms. For the main army build here, we have the Nobblers mixed in with Nobbler Trappers as our first line of defenses, and on the flank, each flank has a single Ogre Bull unit, and then at the back 4 Saber-Tusk packs protecting 2 Lead Bouchers, and of course they are supported by 2 Man-Eaters with great weapons. Not only do they have solid melee stats, 40 attack, 42 melee defense, they also have bonus versus large, great armor piercing damage, and more importantly, immune to psychology. This is a great trait in a roster that doesn't have the greatest leadership, meaning that they can hold back terror-causing units, for example, Gorebull on the other side. For the leadership, we have a Slaughtermaster of the Great Maul coming in with a few spells, including the Brain Gobbler. This is a spell I've been warming up to ever since Human Boy Yes talked about it. And then we have the Bone Crusher as well as the Troll Guts. Now, for the Beastmen army of Le Norm, a whole front line of Ungor spears, one of them the Destroyers of the Drakewald. Behind them, Le Norm is really spamming their mobility, with a few Warhounds, some of them with poison, and a ton of Centaurs. 3 of them with throwing axes, one of them the Grook Hooves of Wolf's Run. These fast-moving, skirmishing cavalry would be an important force of the Beastmen army. Not only can they chip away health of Crusher units with their armor-piercing throwing axes, but also they have decent enough melee stats that if they get into melee combat against the lightly armored Lead Bouchers, they will absolutely destroy the artillery infantry. Now last but not least, the Beastmen leadership. We have Taurox the Brass Bull here, supported by the Butchers of Kalkengard, and there's also a Brave Shaman of Wild coming in with the Traitorkin spell, which is extremely effective against the Ogre Kingdoms. And that's it for the army builds. Now let's get the battle started. At the beginning of the battle, the Lead Bouchers can't actually shoot at Ungor spears, since they're actually hidden in open fields due to their stock ability. However, as the front line closes in, the Ungor spears will be eventually spotted by the Nobblers, and then the Lead Bouchers will open fire. On the far flank here, the Chaos Warhounds with poison and the Centaurs are moving around the battlefield, hoping to overload my right flank, or at least find an opening so that these mobility can sneak in and silence the Lead Bouchers, who are doing some devastating damage to the Ungor spears. With the penetration of the Lead Boucher cannonballs, they can actually strike multiple models every time they land and hit, and as you can see here, the Ungor spears are already down to half health with the help of some Nobbler Trappers chucking their scrap metal. Being attacked by both missiles and artillery, the Ungor spears leadership is receiving a massive penalty. As you can see on the breakdown, missile and artillery are 2 separate morale debuff, and as a result, even the meager Nobblers can break them off by a single charge. At this point, Le Norm has his mobility in place ready to charge in, and I'll be dropping in a Bone Crusher, trying to eliminate as much of the Beastmen infantry support as possible before the flank overload begins. Taurox and his Angry Cow Brigade is moving in, the Warhounds and Centaurs charge straight into the Nobbler Trappers. I'll be counter-charging with the Ogre Bulls, and my opponent will be counter-charging my counter-charge with the Warhounds, and I'll be counter-charging their counter-charge against my counter-charge with the Saber-Tusk packs. Le Norm is pouring in a lot of resources trying to break through my flank, and I'll be responding in kind, just like a landlord selling his property, making them pay for every inch. However, unfortunately, Ogre Bulls are taking massive damage and they do not have the greatest leadership, so they will be terrified by the presence of Gorebull, who does have terror, and also the Butchers of Kalkengard. I responded with the Man-Eaters with great weapons, hoping they will hold the line, but that also means my opponent, Le Norm here, can drop in a massive Traitorkin, draining away the health of a lot of units here, hitting the Ogre Bulls, 2 Saber-Tusks, and the Man-Eaters themselves. Now both sides have units breaking. I'll be throwing in more fresh units of Saber-Tusk, while Le Norm will be charging in some regrouped Warhounds as the Centaurs with throwing axes continue to chuck their throwing axes into the fray. While on the other flank, I have been successful in beating back all the Ungor spears. This means all these Nobbler units can be consolidated with the Ogre elites. While over here, Saber-Tusk being caught by the Centaurs and will be routed, but I'll be responding with the Man-Eaters, hoping to push away these Beastmen mobility. Now back to the right flank fight, where Le Norm has routed a lot of my units, but the Man-Eaters are still holding with their immune to psychology. Even with low leadership, they would not be terrified. This buys time for the Lead Bouchers at the back to keep shooting, and the Centaurs with throwing axes will be paying a bloody price. Now, Lenormand did miss out a massive opportunity here. The Sentinels could have just rushed straight into the lead belchers and cut them down in melee, as my Nobblers were out of position earlier, unable to protect the artillery infantry. Now they're throwing their axes at my man-eaters with great weapons and have missed that opportunity, as now the gap has been closed. The Nobblers are in place to screen away all these Chaos Warhounds and Sentinels who have finally broke through my man-eaters with great weapons. The Lead Belchers will be able to retreat under the cover of the Nobblers, while the Man-Eaters, despite being broken off, they still have 12 models left and is still a considerable fighting force after some healing. The Man-Eaters here also taking a lot of damage against the Sentinels, but the Troll Guards will be topping them up pretty nicely, even against the Sentinel throwing axes focus fire. In the front line, Taurox is trying to snipe out my Slaughtermaster to eliminate the healing support. Another Traitorkin is going down, draining the health of my Ogre Bulls and the Slaughtermaster, but that is not that bad for me because these are not that expensive other than the Slaughtermaster. Lead Belchers securing at the back line here. Some Ungor Spears regrouped are trying to tie them down, but the Nobblers will be able to screen them off. At the back here, the Butchers of Kalkengard are trying to run through my forces and possibly pursue the Man-Eaters, but I'll be sacrificing some of the Saber-Tusk packs to slow them down, while the Man-Eaters behind them, having dealt with the Sentinels and are topped up nice and well with the Troll Guards, will be returning to deal with the Minotaurs. Right now, there's not a lot of pressure on my backline just yet because a lot of the Sentinels with ring axes are being screened away by my Nobbler infantry. My Nobblers and Ogre Bulls formed a super wide barrier, forcing the Sentinels into a difficult situation. To get to my Lead Belchers, they can either run around the barrier or try to brute force their way through. Either way, they'll be spending extra time and giving my Lead Belchers extra time to shoot at them. Though right now, the Lead Belchers have to stop shooting and go on a retreat as Taurox is here to threaten them. Same goes for these rather fast Ungor Spear herds, actually able to catch up to the Lead Belchers here. The Lead Belchers need to get out of there ASAP before they get dragged down in melee combat. At the back, things are looking quite grim for the Butchers of Kalkengard as they are now being worked down by the Man-Eaters with great weapons. Another Traitorkin here, hitting both Lead Belchers and the Slaughtermaster. Really good cast of Traitorkin so far, but unfortunately that will not save the Butchers of Kalkengard as the Man-Eaters are making real short work of them. They might have regeneration and great melee stats, but the Man-Eaters with great weapons are a specialized monster hunter, perfect for countering the Butchers. Lead Belchers have taken a lot of damage from the Ungor Spears, and the Nobblers are trying desperately to stop the chase. Sentinels still trying to get to my Lead Belchers, but the Nobbler Trappers are constantly chipping away their health with their scrap metal projectiles, and they will be taking a lot of attrition damage. They are now trying to overload the Nobbler front line here and get to my Lead Belchers, but right now I have more and more units coming back. The Man-Eaters right here are almost healed up to full. Getting another Troll Guards, they still have 15 models left, so they still have almost full fighting power despite getting their heal cap in sight. The other Man-Eaters might have taken a lot more damage from the beginning of the battle, but as long as there is healing coming in for them, they should be able to fight just fine. And at this point, things are looking quite grim for the Beastman army. The Beastman leadership, the Butchers, the Sentinels have all taken substantial damage. This one Sentinel even got shattered by a Brain Gobbler, taking down a good chunk of ammo with them. Honestly, the Brain Gobbler is just a nice and cheap spell to take out units by triggering early routes. Taurox will try for one last desperate gamble to kill off my Slaughtermaster, but unfortunately for him, the Slaughtermaster is constantly healing in melee with the Blood Cleaver, and more importantly, there is this Belly Slapper ability here. A constant -8 melee attack to surrounding enemy units, combined with the constant healing from the Blood Cleaver as well as the Lore of Great Maul passive. The Slaughtermaster is actually surprisingly tanky. Now I am overblobbing with my troops here. Man-Eaters, Slaughtermasters, Lead Belchers all took a hit from the Traitorkin, but unfortunately for the Beastman, I am just overwhelming the poor Taurox right now. Every swing of that anti-large armor piercing from the Man-Eaters is taking a huge chunk of his HP away, and it seems that the boys are having beef for dinner tonight. First of all, GG to my opponent Lenormand, putting up a good fight, but unfortunately, this Beastman build is mostly geared towards dealing with a Crusher spam, with so many throwing axes and the Traitorkin on the Wild Brave Shaman. However, there is no Crushers in sight here, and instead we have a lot of Lead Belchers providing some anti-skirmishing firepower, shooting down the Sentinels and the Beastman infantry, and all the mobility threats here. Warhounds, the Sentinels were repelled by a combination of Man-Eaters and Saber-Tusk spam. The Man-Eaters were especially good at holding the line against terror-causing unit because most of the Ogre kingdoms do not have great leadership or immune to psychology, but the Man-Eaters do. In the early game, holding back Taurox and the Butchers were really key in allowing the Leadbelchers and the Nobbler Trappers to do work against the other Beastmen units, buying time for the Saber Tusk as well to regroup and come back to countercharge all the Beastmen incursion. The rest of the army did pretty well here. Saber Tusk did okay for most of them. One of them not a lot of value, but then they didn't really see that much active engagement. And then the Ogre Bulls did okay damage. Nobblers did absolutely fine with the Trappers trading very cost efficiently against the lightly armored Beastmen army. And the basic Nobblers did okay as well as they pushed back the Beastmen Ungor Spears and then provide more bodies to screen enemy units and just absorb hits for the more expensive units. Slaughtermaster didn't really do much damage since he is more of a tank and a spell supporter, providing a lot of Trollguts here, keeping these Man-Eaters alive well into the late game. For the Beastmen army here, the Butchers didn't really do much here despite their great melee stats. They just don't trade well against the Man-Eaters with great weapons. Taurox the Brass Bull did some good damage but unable to recover their value, but the Brave Shaman of Wild with all those good Trader King casts drained away a lot of health on my expensive Ogre monsters. The Grook Hoofs of Wolf's Run and the rest of the Throwing Axes Centaurs didn't really get the trade they want since there is no Crusher on the field whatsoever, and the Centaurs, unfortunately, combined with the Warhounds, are just no match for a combination of Ogre Bulls, Saber Tusk Packs, and Man-Eaters with great weapons. They're just two glass cannon of a mobility unit. However, they do trade well into the Man-Eaters with great weapons if they can get a charge on, but then they don't have the healing, but Man-Eaters do. The Ungor Spears got absolutely wrecked by a combination of Leadbelcher Fire and Nobbler missiles. And that's it for today's battle. I hope viewers you enjoy it, and if you want to see more, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Tactical Lich, signing out.